We are recording what we're calling a Sermon Plus. If this ever gets played in an archive, this will be taken off of the beginning of the recording, but I just want you guys to know this is just being released to social media and online and YouTube and things like that. I flew in Saturday night, and I suspected that this was going to be one of those that was very specific to Powell, Butte, and we got done, and Jacob and I talked about it, and I was like, that seems kind of universal. That seems like something that needs to be sort of available. We're going into... The theme of the summer is plus, P-L-U-S, plus. We're Life Plus, and this is the beginning of that series. I anticipate that this will probably be the running theme through the summer. John 10, we'll get to it in a second, talks about life more abundantly. What does it mean to have life plus? What does it mean to not just survive and be alive, but to step out of the fog, to step out of the haze and see life clearly, and then address what you see when those moments happen. Matthew 17, verses 1 through 9, I'll read it all to you, and then we'll go back and see what we read. Verse 1 says, After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up to a high mountain by themselves. There he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as light. Just then there appeared before them Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus. Don't get lost in all the churchy terms. Stick with me. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my son, whom I love, and with him I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell face down to the ground, terrified, but Jesus came and touched them. Get up, he said, don't be afraid. When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, Don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. This is a story referred to in church and Bible terms as Mount Transfiguration, where Jesus sort of goes through this transformation. He's about to be crucified. They go to the top of the mountain. Listen, it's a churchy story. I know that you could listen to that and feel like you are experiencing sort of this religious experience, but I'm confident that it's more than that. I'm confident that anybody from any walk of life, from any position, from any background, from any gender, from any sexual orientation, from any religious background, anybody can take from this story what's there and use it and put it into practice, and they're going to see benefits in their life. They're going to see differences. They're going to see a different outcome than what they've been living in up until this point. I really do believe that. If you'll give me a short period of time here, I want to draw out of this story what I see and then hopefully put it in your lap in a way that's useful to you. We don't use words like transfiguration very often. It's not something that comes up. I'm willing to bet that in your life this week, you haven't used the word transfiguration. You know what I could really go for? Transfiguration. But what it means is I wrote the definition down, but really in reality, it's just to become something more than human. They see Jesus becoming something more than human. And I think there are times where that's really this dull, repetitive distraction, focus on the problems, focus on the immediate, the tyranny of urgency, like whatever's the most urgent just grabs our attention. And I think somewhere inside every person, and sometimes we push it way down, sometimes we suppress it, sometimes we close the shades off to it. But in reality, I think every person goes through this moment of I feel like I'm supposed to be more than I am. I feel like life is supposed to hold more than it holds at this point. I feel like that I'm not achieving what I was meant to achieve. And yet I'm paddling so hard just to keep my head above water. I can't focus on how to work on my life because I'm so busy working in my life. John 10:10 says, I came that they may have life and life more abundantly. What does that mean? It means not barely getting by, not struggling to barely survive. It means not getting through every day, tired, dreading the next day, and doing it all over again. That is not God's plan for you. There are seasons. I say God's plan for you because I believe that that's what God's got for us. That's what the word teaches. But even if that's not your background, you have to consider that you already know that that's true. You already know that your life was not made to just barely get by and barely survive. That's not who you were wired to be. And I can prove it. If that's who you were meant to be, then every day wouldn't be a drag. You would just expect it. You would know, hey, this is what life's supposed to be like, and you would just go through day to day. The fact that you urgently feel like you need to escape the mundane means you're aware of it. You're made for more. So what is life plus? I don't think that Jesus, in the word, it doesn't indicate that Jesus went through this whole elaborate, universal, eternal, deity-changing forms into human, fully God, fully man. He didn't go through all that so that he could turn you into a good little boy or a good little girl. The idea is not to turn you into good little soldiers. I think the reason that people resist what they hear taught in a church setting is because we take what the gospel says and then we add on and we go, so here's what we want you to do. Here's what we want you to be. And I don't see indicated in the word that it's about being a good little boy or a good little girl. I'm saying that there is life on the inside that is trying to explode and get to life on the outside where we see that life is not just surviving, but we're thriving. That's what life plus means. I'm betting you already know all this. I'm betting that when you listen to this, you go, yeah, I feel like I'm aware of that. I feel like I get that. I feel like I know that. If the gospel, life more abundantly, and your reality don't look the same, my guess is there is a mountain climbing expedition in your future. There is a mountain climbing opportunity. My encouragement would be, listen to what I'm saying, consider it so that when you see it, you know what an opportunity looks like. You know what an opportunity looks like so that you'll know how to take it. 3 points. They all rhyme. I actually changed the order from yesterday live. Your attention, your retention, and your intention. Attention, retention, intention. A-R-E. Start with attention. Matthew 17, 1 through 9. We read that. You go back to verse 1. It says, after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. This is not a small detail. If I were to say things like, see if this list stands out to you. See, and like I said, I'm probably dating myself a little bit when I preach this sermon. It's just in the news right now. If you're like, oh, I remember that back when maybe you're hearing this years in the future, but the truth of what I'm going to say doesn't change. Think about this. Gas prices. Oh, yeah, boy, I tell you what, we got to be drilling at home. We're energy independent. If we would just get these dadgum politicians, all of a sudden, there we go. Get your attention. Ukraine. It's all we talked about. It's all we talked about for a while. Inflation. What about inflation? Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. I'm so excited to have my wife back. That trial wrapped up, and my wife is back. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. Have you ever stopped to consider how many things in your life are ripping mercilessly at your attention? Your phone goes off, and it's a little dopamine hit. You're like, that's so. Oh, I got a notification. Oh, I got a like. Oh, I got a comment. Oh, look at this video. Oh, look at this little puppy video. Oh, look at this beautiful location. Oh, look, all the things that grab our attention that are connected to our cell phones. Even good things become greedy with your attention. The comparison would be, have you ever seen somebody when they get a new puppy and the puppy's really, really cute and they just love it so much, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 days in and they're like, I haven't thought about one single thing other than this stupid puppy for you. When something has your attention, if something grips your focus, here's the scary part. It owns you. And life comes with algorithms. We think that's a computer thing. It's not at all. Life comes with algorithms. The comparison would be, I'm on a teaching team in Montgomery, and I love going down there. And one of the things that I get to do is bring a family member with me when I go. And we rent through this app called Turo, T-U-R-O, if you ever want to use it, free shout out. But instead of going through a rental car company, you go through individuals, and we're able to I rent a Tesla when I go because my kids just love them. They think they're great. And so when I'm driving this Tesla, as cool as that experience is, what do I notice? What's the first thing that happens? You get in a Tesla and you're, man, this is exciting. What's the first thing you start to see everywhere on the road? There's a Tesla. They're everywhere. They were always there. It's just until my attention put this car into focus, then I wasn't able to notice everything because life comes with algorithms. Speaking of your attention, play this fun game. Take 30 seconds. 30 seconds, set your timer, 30 seconds, and try to focus on one thing for 30 seconds without any other outside distractions. Like, oh, that sounds easy. Give it a shot. When people start to work on things like meditating, they tell you to do like chants or breathing, think about the air going in, think about the air going out. I'm not really much of a meditator. I'm working on it. I'd like to be. I'm just not. But the reason they tell you to think about your breathing is because it keeps your mind engaged. It keeps your focus engaged so that you can stop thinking about everything else. Because whatever owns your focus owns you in a very deep way. Whatever owns your focus owns you in a way that should cause you to feel a little bit claustrophobic. Jesus is about to change everything, and he starts by climbing a mountain. It says that he climbs a high mountain. There is no way to climb a mountain without giving it your attention and giving it your focus. He starts by saying, okay, we got to clear the palate here a little bit. We got to wipe the slate clean. I wonder how annoyed Jesus stays with our cluttered up brains, where he's speaking, but there's just so much ambient noise around us that we can't hear what he's saying. Wesley and Jacob talked about it yesterday, that it's like being in a room full of noise, and until you look and focus on the person that's talking to you, it's like you can't hear them. And I think when Jesus starts going up the mountain, the first thing he's saying is, I need your attention. You might notice that when you give something your full attention, the crowd got smaller. I mean, he had hundreds of people following him. He had 12 disciples, but at the top of the mountain, full attention, full focus. I don't think that's an insignificant thing to notice, that when you make up your mind that you want to reestablish your focus, you want to reestablish your attention, you want to start focusing on back to what really is important, what really matters, what you're going to see is the crowds are smaller. We've been taught that 1 million people is a small number of people. That's how many people should follow you. 1 million people. We've gotten so screwed up on what numbers of people, that we're so screwed up in that. Verse 2, there he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. Isn't that interesting? That when Jesus got their full attention and their full focus, they saw him differently. I've wondered this in my own life. I've wondered this. I'm like, why? How do I forget who Jesus is? And I do forget. I mean, I know what I believe, and if you were to ask me, it's not that I've ever had the wrong answers. I know who Jesus is, but if not, I'm not careful, and something else gets my attention, something else gets my focus, then pretty soon something else gets my heart. Whatever has my focus has my heart, and if I can stay focused on who Jesus is long enough, then all of a sudden it's like he begins to transfigure in my mind, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Why did I forget this? He's not telling me how to navigate the universe. He's saying, follow me, and I'll take care of the universe. I'll take care of the world. I wonder if the reason we don't see God as big enough to trust is because we're just casually bumping into him at the bottom of a mountain. You know, rather than pursuing life more abundantly, we're pursuing life more casually or life more conveniently. And the reason we bump into Jesus, we're like, okay, sounds good. Jesus, church, yep, Sunday school, got it, Bible, yeah, but here's what I'm really focusing on. We're talking about Jesus plus, we're talking about life plus, we're talking about purpose plus, passion plus, we're doing sermon plus. The summer of plus is that, like, you can survive, you can live, you can, listen, I'm going to tell you this, you can make it to heaven without having a mountaintop experience where you're just like, okay, yeah, I accept it. And then you just kind of like work it out and like you're working through it. And I know there's verses about the lukewarm, but I think that there will be people who Jesus is like, come in, but like, the green grass is at the top of the mountain. And this is not just a Bible story. I think this is true in almost everything. Almost everything in your life that's worth having, you don't bump into it at the bottom of the mountain. And second of all, even if you did, you wouldn't know what to do with it. Second point is retention. What do you retain? What are you able to retain? James chapter 1, verse 22 says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves, do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do. What's he saying? He's saying, don't be the guy that bumps into truth at the bottom of the mountain and then casually walks off and forgets it. It's what makes my job at times crushing in discouragement, is that I spend time. I say this just for reference. Don't take this as some sort of flex. I don't intend it to be one, but I try to spend somewhere between 60 and 70 hours of research per sermon. It's my goal. And I do that by listening to podcasts and books on tape and things like that at double speed. Everybody always gets in the car like, could you slow that down? But I try to put so much information into preaching, and I think sometimes people just hear it too casually. Sounds good. They just bump into it at the bottom of the mountain. There hasn't been an intention. There hasn't been a focus. There hasn't been an effort to climb a mountain, and so there's no retention. We hear it, and we're like, yeah, that's good, and we go away, and we forget what we heard. I think without attention, very seldom will you have retention. You'll hear it. You'll know it. It won't change you. You don't experience life plus because maybe you saw it, but whatever. It's good. I'll get it. I'll get you on the next one. There's a casual, convenient element that causes retention to be almost zero. I think that what you see in the third point is going to help explain the second point. I think what happens when we get to intention helps us understand how we get to better retention. Okay. Let's not sit there and nod and act like you agree with what I'm saying and then turn right around and go give our attention and our focus back to the old same trash bins. Okay. Don't act like, oh yeah, that's so good. Yeah. If you're not going to do anything about it, great. You're going to stay at the bottom of the mountain. I've done it. We've all done it. It's not, no judgment, but I'm telling you, if you want change, if you want things to change, if you want God to become more real, if you want to see Jesus transfigured into something that's big enough to take your whole problems and your whole life and make you into something better, the problem is this: you can't go reassign your focus and your attention back, and you can't just walk away from the retention because you didn't earn the information. You got to earn the information if it's going to stick. Here's my third point. Here we are. We're done. Intention. Life more abundantly. Life doesn't roll uphill. Pour water out, it goes to the lowest point. Life goes against, this is important, try to understand this. Life flows against your progress. Jesus is calling us to the top of the mountain. I can't tell you how many significant stories happened at the top of the mountains. You can go through the list. I will at some point. You go through the top of the list of all the things that God's doing at the top of the mountain, top of the mountain, top of the mountain, top of the mountain. Because you had to go against the natural flow of life to get where you were going. You have to walk against the flow of gravity to go find what's extra, go find what's plus, life more abundantly. That means this: life plus starts with a minus. Life plus starts with a minus, because you can't take all of your distractions and all of your lack of focus and all of your lack of attention and all lack of purpose. It won't make it to the top of the mountain. Before you get to the top of the mountain, where life happens, where magic happens, where miracles happens, where transfiguration happens, where life-changing potential starts to be realized, you start to realize what you're capable of, all of the things, before you get to the top of the mountain, you're going to have to set some things down, because those things can't go with you. Life plus starts with minus. A death of an old to make room for a new. Steve Stone says it all the time. You can't put new wine into old wineskins. It's biblical. It'll crack. It'll break. You can't expect that God's going to find you at the bottom of the mountain and try to invest all of this change into your life. It would break you. You've got to change on your way up. You've got to suffer through seasons. And now, listen, you don't get to coordinate this. You don't get to decide your suffering. Sometimes you just find yourself in a situation and you go, I don't know what I'm doing. But you keep going. You keep going with anticipation that when you get through it, there's something better. You're going through a transfiguration of your own. You're going into something different. You're going into this process, and when you get there, you're going to be able to hold better information, better potential, better opportunity. You are going to become a new thing. Usually what happens is when people see life clearly, they lose their bearings for a little bit. Think of it like getting in shape. The hardest part about getting in shape is seeing the condition that you're in. Realizing like, oh, this is not good. If you can avoid that moment where you really take inventory of your condition, you're not as motivated to change. But sometimes you lose your mind. And I think you see a little bit of that in Peter, where all of a sudden they see Jesus and Peter has this like, oh, I got to do something. Can't you just see, I think it would be so cool. It says Moses and Elijah, both that God met on the Mount Horeb. There's this Jesus reference, the rock. There's so much to Moses and Elijah being on top of this mountain. I would love to be one of Jesus's old friends. I think that would be such a cool experience that he's like, hey man, how's it been? Good. How you been? Good. Good. Real good. How are your guys doing? Boy. There's this one and he just can't shut up. They're like, oh, I think I see him. He's coming right now. It sounds like he's going to say, what an experience to be one of Jesus's old friends. Verse 4, ready? So they're experiencing timelessness. They're seeing God outside of time and space. And they're like, their minds are blown. And so Peter, he does what he always does. He's like, I got to say something. And Jesus is like, this is the one. Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. It's so easy. It's so easy when you go through this transformation and you break through and you're like, I'm starting to feel good. I'm starting to see some results. All of a sudden I'm seeing potential. I want to tell you right now in this period of my life, I'm starting to see new potential in my own life, and I'm starting to see more clarity. And there's something about that I'm like, I want to cling to this feeling. I want to cling to this feeling of opportunity. I'm not a Disneyland guy. I don't even like Disneyland. I won't ever go as an adult, I don't think, unless, my wife. But one of the things people say when they come back from Disneyland is, I just want to capture the experience. The sights, the sounds, the smells, the food. I just love it. The problem is if you move to Disneyland, then Disneyland is no longer Disneyland. Everything becomes nothing, right? If you live at the mountaintop experience, then it loses its flavor. So Peter's like, we need to live here forever. Screw the other disciples. No, we're fine. Let's just live here. You guys good? I'll build it. It'll be fine. It'll be great. This is why intention matters, because you focus your attention, you hang on to it, but what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? When you have that mountaintop experience, when you have this breakthrough, when God becomes real, when you see things more clearly, you hang on to it. What are you going to do? Here's the problem. What we want to do and what we're called to do is two different things. Verse 9, as they were coming down the mountain, Jesus instructed them, don't tell anyone what you have seen until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. So two big points. They came back down the mountain. Jesus calls them somewhere. They change, and he calls them right back. I think I've reached this weird place in my life where I'm far more recognizable than I expected I ever would be. It's like I can't go anywhere. Someone's not like, oh, hey, Jordan. Like, you wouldn't believe the people that I bump into. Maybe they don't watch every single week, but they check in or whatever. And so what I've noticed is this. I talked about it on the podcast a little bit last night, but I could sit in a room with 10 million people and speak, and they could cheer, and it'd be this mountaintop like, oh, that's so cool. Oh, Jordan, you're doing great. How many of those people would I ever really get to know? What are the chances I'm going to get to know any of those people? You could sit in a crowd of 100,000. You could sit in a crowd of 1,000. Realistically, I'm never going to get to fully experience relational intimacy and personal information with that many people. So fame sort of has this expiration date. If I really want to change my world, if I really want my world to change, what I need to do is I need to let God take me through this transformation so that when I go back, I'm able to make an effect or an impact on the people I'm close with, my group of people. You want to change the world? Change your circle. Come back down off the mountain and be determined and diligent to give it your attention, retention, and come back fully prepared to act on your intention. God doesn't call you to live in the moments. He calls you to experience the moments and retain the moments and take them and use them with intention. There was a movie when I was a kid, it was called Hook, it had Robin Williams in it. He goes back and he's this old man because he fell in love and he moved to the real world. And he comes back and he's this old man, and the lost boys, they're like turning on him. They're like, you're not Peter. We know Peter. That's not you. And there's this one scene, this cute little boy, and he's touching Robin Williams' face, and he's doing like this, and he's looking at him. It's this cute, like it would have been a cute scene to like get to film because you're seeing this cute little kid, and he's talking to Robin Williams. It's just a cool cinematic moment. I know that Jacob would understand what I'm talking about. Maybe it's just he's touching his face, and he's touching his eyes, and he's doing all this, and Robin Williams is sitting there taking it. He goes, "There you are. There you are. It's you. You're him." Okay, big revelation moment. Okay. The movie would have sucked if you just ended it there and went, well, okay, it's over. He came back. The movie takes on an intensity because there's an intention. Now there's an intention. They go, what are we going to do? And he goes, we're going to go take on the bad guy. Let's take this moment. Let's take this revelation moment of like, there you are, Jesus. You were in this process the whole time. You were in my climb. You led me into this. You led me through suffering. You led me through all this. You led me through my failure. You loved me in my deficit. You loved me in my surplus. There you are. He goes, yeah, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to go take on the world. Oh, the whole world. No, your group, your circle, your friends, your people. I'm going to make you into something that's useful and has a purpose. One of the things I've determined in my life is this. I want generosity to follow me. I want to be a source of generosity. I've always been a giver. Plus starts with minus. If I want to be generous, that means I need to prepare that it's going to come at an expense or at a loss. And I'm good with that. But what I like is I want to be somebody who buys my friends presents. And guys, you'll attest to this. Like, guys don't buy each other presents. We're like, hey, man, I got you something. What? But I like it. I enjoy it. And I like when people do it for me. If it's meaningful, I don't want people to just be like, hey, I got you a carrot. But if that's the kind of circle I want intimately in my small group, and I'm going to tell you what, the older I get, the smaller my group gets, but more personal, more intimate it gets. I've got a lot of people I like being around. A lot of people I enjoy spending time with, but I've just got a real small group. And so when I'm able to invest into those, I enjoy it because I want my world to be a generous bubble. I want my little snow globe that I live in. And I'm only using this as an example, but my point is, until you go through this process where you go, I need to be the agent of change in my circles. I need to be the agent of forgiveness and love and purpose. I want to live in joy. I want to live with exceeding amounts of joy. And the problem is, my brother actually had this conversation. He said the problem is joy and wisdom don't run hand in hand. So if you're going to have both, it's an uphill battle. You're going to have to go to the top of the mountain if you want to understand how joy and wisdom work together. But I know this, when I experience it, when I live in it, I'm able to come back down the mountain and I'm able to be an agent of change in my circles. Life more abundantly does not come with being the most famous, the most wealthy, the most recognizable. It comes with living so full of life that you have a positive impact on your intimate, tight circle of people. Life plus. Let's pray. Lord, I don't feel like this needs a big elaborate wrap up, but I know this. So few people are actually going to act on what we talked about. I fully understand that what we're doing is going to be limited to the few people that have already gone through a season of suffering. I think a season of suffering is what activates messages like this into people's lives. They're in the moment of suffering, but really what they want is they want to know that there's a purpose. We can suffer through anything if there's a purpose. God, I pray that it is on our radar that we pursue life plus, life more abundantly, life full of life, where we are a positive agent of change in our circles. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.